because I put too much pressure on myself and that's why I sort of went into coaching, because when I started doing the under 8s now, the adrenaline buzz that I got and everything, the energy and like my inner anxiety.
Good afternoon and welcome. This is the Reflective Coach podcast with Coach Luca. You can find the podcast on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter and Spotify. You can reach out to me and connect, as well as feature on an interview. All you have to do is subscribe and follow. Within this episode, I interview Coach Albert Spinks. Albert talks about his journey on his personal and professional life, and within this episode he talks about how they both interlink and his experiences at Wembley, his coaching journey, his unique philosophy, the way he's been on his own coach education and what he believes should change, as well as the system within England that the players endure. Albert talks about his research on his degree as well as masters, as well as his experiences with Frank Lampard. It has been great to speak to Albert, and he talks about some personal attributes and personal additional needs which have been quite open and relate to a lot of individuals that are out there that may be a bit of stigma that is attached when talking about these issues. It's great that Albert was so open to talking about these personal issues as well as additional needs which have affected him, but how he's been able to adapt and take this on his professional journey. It was wonderful to meet Albert, and he is such a wonderful character in life. He had such a great outlook, which was so positive, and although he has additional needs, which you'll find out further within this episode, this doesn't prevent him from doing his job, as well as coaching to a fantastic level of degree. Albert is such a fantastic coach and professional that we're so lucky to have within the game, and it was great to interview him. Listen to the episode to find out more. You can listen on both YouTube and Spotify, as well as Anchor and Podcast Addict. Again, you can drop a follow and subscribe on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. This is Coach Luca, and take a listen to Albert. This is Coach Albert Spinks' interview with Coach Luca, the Reflective Coach podcast.
Thank you.
Good, nice to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
It's always good to sort of get these things in and around when we're not coaching. It's just a non-stop lifestyle of a coach, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great to have you part of the Coaching Insight series and a featured part of the Reflective Coach podcast. And we have with us Coach Albert Spinks. And I just wanted to start off about talking about your background and currently where you are and what you're doing.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm currently a Sunday league coach. We're currently coaching in the Sale Kent League in South East London. I'm coaching with a team called Beacons. Last season I'm currently doing with the under 8s team. Like we have like teams from like way down to under 7 all the way up to like veterans, so like young under 21s and that kind of thing. So yeah, I've been coaching now for nearly, I'd probably say when I was about 16 is probably when I sort of started. It really that was when I was at college, and the course that I was doing, like, because when I was at secondary school, you either had like, obviously sixth form, and then obviously like college, where like you had BTECs and everything. And I did a BTEC in like a level 3 sport, which was equivalent to 3A levels, and through there, that was when it all sort of began really. But in that early stages, what a lot of people don't tell you, I think, like when you start a new skill, you're terrible to start off with, if you know what I mean. And it wasn't because you had to do multiple different sports. But when I went to university, that was when I always wanted to specialise in football, as that was my dream ever since I was about 4 years old. And when I sort of figured out I wasn't going to become a player when I was about 40 in my teenage years, which obviously would be very hard to take because you love the game so much. But however, I was like, I'm not going to give up on my dream. I'm going to find another way. I'm going to find another way in. And through doing this, it's the other way of finding another way in.
And it's that way in which can certainly help in terms of, those aspirations and trying to find out, exactly what you want to do. Because it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be a coach who specialises in 16 to 18s working with scholars, or you might go and work with a 13 to 14-year-old age range, or you might be a foundation phase coach where you work from under sixes to under nines, or you might aspire to go and work with the first team, or you might be a psychologist, and the list is endless. And even if you were in your 30s and you had done football coaching for 10 years, you might go, do you know what, I fancy going down in this route, and that's where you can go through. And it's about finding yourself, and it's, as you said, sometimes you find out early that you are terrible. I remember when I first started the Grassroots, my team were invited down to Swansea City, and I went down there with the mindset, oh, if I impress now, they're going to offer me a job. So I tried everything when I was coaching to try and impress those coaches. But in reality, when I look back now, I was an awful coach back then. I had none of the skill set that I have now, and since then I've just continuously developed. And it's so much so that we continue to learn so much, even when we are at a space when we've been coaching for 5 or 6 years, for example. There's still so much for us to continue learning.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think what people forget sometimes is there's a quote from Tiger Woods, who's obviously one of the greatest golfers of his generation. He's won 15 majors now, and he said that no matter how good you get, you can always get better. And he was one of those, and that's how the best are able to stay at the top for so many years. Is because they don't like change so much. They make the small adjustments. I think Djokovic done a similar thing when he became world number one in tennis. He made small adjustments in his success rate in his serves, for example, and it's the same with coaches. Like, we can always be improving, and that's one of the biggest things for me is the evolution.
Absolutely, and it's that evolution as a coach and everyone around you, where you can create that culture and environment to continue aspiring. And as for me, when you're a coach, it's about setting those standards which you expect from everyone else. And sometimes I speak to coaches who I coach alongside me, and they talk about, oh, well, I had this problem, I had this and that. And I was like, well, did you set the standards? Did you go in with these expectations that perhaps didn't align with the way that you set up your session? And sometimes setting up and organising your session can lead to either a great session or sometimes a downfall in terms of the organisation around it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think as a coach as well, you sort of set the tone as well for what's going to happen. You've got to, like, I think sometimes with the standards thing, for me, I'm always a believer in, I'm not coming down to anyone else's standard. Everyone's coming up to mine. And like more recently, when we had our first game of the season yesterday, and unfortunately it was because at under eights level you play 2 games and it's in one day, so we lost. Unfortunately, we lost both games. Unfortunately it was like a 2-1 and 3-2 loss, but however a fair draw would have been a result in my eyes. But however, the stat the when you're on the pitch, that isn't the problem. Like the way we played and all that and that kind of thing. It's the attitude and the behaviour, like though when you're on the bench and everything. That because when you're coaching kids at a young age, it's like their attention can be all over the place sometimes. Their sole focus may not be on the aim, and they can get kids, and you need to be able to share something meaningful to them and make them understand. And when I was after the game, I said, with this season, we want to raise the level, and we're not coming down to anyone else's standards. They're coming up to ours, and we should be setting the example for other people to follow. And that's sort of something that has been ingrained to me ever since I was a kid.
And since coaching these under eights, have you been with them since they started, say, under sixes, or have you just come in at this point? How's that come around with this under eights?
That's a good question. Before I became, to give you some context, I was with a company called We Make Footballers, and that was it's like they call themselves I think it is true still, the #1 football coaching company in the UK. And when I was at university, I was at the Teddington campus down in Twickenham in South West London. That's where my university was, St Mary's specifically. And when I was there, again, I wasn't too sure, but after I left last last year in 2021, and then that's how I came to Beacons, because I wanted, after getting so much confidence from there and realizing that there's something in there for me from there, and that I can actually do something now, and I've got because my confidence had grown so much, and I thought, right, I need to be in with a team. I want to be able to implement what I like my own session plans. I want to be able to do this. It's like, and I want to be able to lead the get like be able to lead a team to a trophy, like because that's my ambition sort of coming in. But at first, when I was at Beacons, it was a real tough for the opening because I was meant to be with the under eights at the time, but however, no one was coming along. So that was what like for about 3 months we were literally having nobody coming from that age group, and it at the time it was really frustrating because when you're a coach sometimes it's sort of like a chef. You can't get excited unless there's customers to cook for, and and when I moved to the under sevens, it was like, here we go. I've now got customers to cook for. I've now got players to coach. And since then, and since I took over, they were losing to begin with. Before I joined, they were losing by more than 10 goals. When I came in, we were about 4 or 5 months later, we won by 14-0. We were winning. We were winning games on more of a consistent basis. The improvement was growing. There was because what I was trying to implement was a bit of impetus and a bit of resilience. It's not at that age, if you try and talk too much about tactics, you don't want to overload them with too much information because if you do that, then they'll just overthink. So what I try and implement is the work rate and the resilience and the mental and the mental toughness. So if we go one goal down, heads don't drop, we go again. And the fact that they showed that yesterday a little bit where they were one goal down and then they managed to come back and in the second game in particular they managed to score to take the lead at one point. And but however again, and that still is developing, but however they've shown that since I've sort of come in, which is great.
And it's great to hear that you've made a great impact and turned things around from conceding to scoring more and keeping clean sheets and taking leads in games and developing the resilience. And it's great, especially when you have such a young age group from under sevens or under eights, for example, to instill the long term standards. So even if you want to be there 3, 4, 5 years and you want to win a trophy and it's about those building blocks and those foundations, it's much easier to set them at under eights than it is to go in and step in at under 14s, for example, a team that's already been together for many years, maybe have many coaches, different standards, and to shape the under eights compared to an under 14s, which is a great context to try and build upon and create that featurette for those players in terms of that environment that you're building.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not. I think building that culture and that climate's not an easy thing to do because I think in the early stages before, I think you need to sort of understand your culture and it's about adaptation. And I sometimes I have to adapt to like my culture and understand like how they do things here. And then once you understand that, that's when you go ahead and sort of build the culture. Because I think when you're in like again with an under 40 team, I think it's I think the context is a very different thing. It's very hard. I think at under eights again. I think when you do instill that at a young age, yes, it can sort of carry over. But I think with like say an under 14s team, the players need belief, and the players need to they want to feel as if okay, we know what this guy's talking about here. And also, I think when you're young at that age, you sort of want to be given the reins a little bit in terms of like because they're not kids where like they don't understand what's going on much. They need to be that you need to give them autonomy. You need to give them like certain responsibilities and let them not in terms of like deciding who picks the team, but however in terms of like if we're doing a like small-sided game, for example, like how are you going to defend? How are you going to set up? Give them an understanding of how see their their knowledge of the game, their IQ, so to speak. And I think that's a very important thing at that age.
And as you say, it's about them showing what they understand about the game so you can continue to help them learn along the way. I love going back into under sevens, under eights, under nine sessions even because they're so they have such a small mind in the sense of how big the football world is and how much more they need to learn and how much you can give them, and so much along their way, such as those tactical elements. You might not focus much on under sevens, eights, nines, but when they're 13, 14s, they're going to learn so much more. But going back and adding in little things and knowing that they have so much to learn is incredible, and it can make those sessions so fun, which is great to have with under sevens and under eights, because when you go into 13s, 14s, it can be so serious at times, but sometimes going back into the younger age ranges, they can be so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I think the context is very different because with my how I've also with my qualifications, I'm currently doing a master's in football coaching, and I've done a BSc or undergraduate degree, so to speak, in sports coaching science. And one of the biggest things that I've read is that when you're at under eights or that young level, the practice design is more. You need to make sure that it's fun, teaching games for understanding, so that way they are prepared for what, say, like for a match day. And when you go up the spectrum, it's more again like the emphasis on small-sided games, but however you can be a bit more serious on performance. But because with under eights, the biggest issue that I face is that obviously with you wanting to win, but however the biggest issue is you don't do that at the cost of relationships. That's the biggest important. That's the most important thing for me, is that the relationships are not destroyed, because if they are destroyed, then it's not ideal for them. And at that young age, again, making sure that it's fun, because the experience is so important. If they Because it will want them to continue, say, when they are 13, 14. So having that good experience at a young age is very important.
Absolutely, and it's if we can help build those relationships and maintain them. And you raise a very good point there about not risking those relationships because of competitiveness. And sometimes that can be a cost with all the stakeholders involved, not just the players but the parents as
Yeah.
well. And managing such young players of under eights, parents can have a big influence upon the environment, relationships, their kids, the context of the winning, the losing, trying to earn those trophies as well. Parents versus participation versus those who want to win. It's a very difficult landscape to try and manage as such, holistically, and it can be such a difficult job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things for me is transparency, is letting people know what's going on. And like that, the biggest thing that I've sort of done is sort of like, for example, what I've been doing more recently is in terms of like these Google forms, in terms of like, how do we, what would you like us to improve on this season? What do you think we need to work on? And what, what do you think our strengths are as a team? What are our weaknesses as a team? What, like, I've also given them a chance to like give feedback also on myself. I've not, and also whenever I've made a decision, it's important to justify why you're doing what you're doing. Otherwise, if you don't justify it in their eyes, then that's when I think they are annoyed. So the important thing is for me is that I do keep them in the loop, and that they are sort of aware of what's going on. And also, again, it's that positive environment. If everyone's feeling good, and remember, it is a team at the end of the day. It's not just like, it's the same with football. Like, if with professional clubs, like there's the coaching staff, there's also the fans, there's also the owners, there's I see it in a similar way, where you got to make sure that everyone has a say and also everyone knows what's going on.
And there's some great points in there, such as that transparency, that openness, the adaptation of utilizing technology such as Google Forms, and receiving feedback. Now, feedback isn't something that everyone wants, especially coaches, because it's sometimes either their way or no way, or they're the best coach since Pep Guardiola, or it doesn't matter what the parents think, I'm still going to coach this way. But feedback can be so difficult to take on board. But when you have that openness to go, right, can I inherit the feedback and instill it into what I'm doing and into this culture? It can create a more a more open landscape between every stakeholder to create an understanding through that transparency in terms of trying to achieve success, in terms of how you're going to coach the players, so that parents understand when little Billy comes off, it's maybe for a tactical change rather than, all right, we need to bring him off because he's not good enough in that sense, or we need
Yeah.
to manage the game to get the energy back on because he's tired. So sometimes parents don't always see that bringing their son or daughter
Mhm.
off is for the right decision of the team. In that sense, it's like, oh, they're off again, or they're bringing my son off, and it can be difficult. But as you say, that feedback is so essential. And do you find it difficult to take feedback on board, or is it something that you relish on?
Um, you need it. I think that's the most important thing. I think if you can't take the feedback, or even if you're like, again, through the pride, stubbornness and pride of not willing to take it on board, I think it's a recipe for danger, really, because you're going to lose. Again, that losing that relationship is key. And whether it's hard, like sometimes it can be hard, maybe sometimes hard to take, but like in life, I think sometimes when, especially if it's from people that we sort of admire and we respect, but however, I do need it, because otherwise, how do I know if I'm? Because you can't sort of go by your own judgments. You can't say, "Oh, I know best." No one know. I don't have. No one has the answers to anything. And that anyone who says they have the answers is talking a load of rubbish. But however, the main thing for me is as long as I get the feedback and as long as they're happy, I'm happy. That's the most important thing.
Absolutely, and it's those little things which, making those changes and receiving feedback in terms of creating a great environment for everyone to be part of and developing those relationships, even with the wider stakeholders. But little things such as technology and using Google Forms is so important, I feel. It's something that I've tried to inherit and develop as part of my previous club, and trying to really move forward with technology because even though through lockdown and COVID, we were
Mhm.
adapting so much to Zoom, Teams, online training, and then
Yeah.
suddenly we came back out of COVID, and it wasn't as a big of an issue having to do things online because we were back on the grass, etc. Suddenly, a lot of
Mm.
people went, right, no more technology, we're back to this. Whereas I felt it was a huge learning curve to keep doing the aspects of technology within
Mm.
the engagement with online participation. But little things like Google Forms, just asking questions and getting it out can make a huge deal of difference. Whereas I feel the coaching as an entirety isn't moving fast enough in terms of the technology available.
Yeah. There are many issues within grassroots football. I think also with, if we can talk about the qualification side of things, like the formal education, so like your level one, that kind of thing. I recently saw. I've also, part of my BSc and my MSc, actually, we've studied a lot about formal coach education, and I've actually looked at a lot of things. For example, they're saying that technology, say like the researchers, they're saying technology enhanced learning could be properly beneficial for play. For example, video feedback. For example, like, say recording your sessions, like video. So again, that to analyzing what behaviors you use. There's like performance analysis, like behavior systems, you know. Oh, and these are things that are not really sort of being implemented by, say, the FA, because that, again, another thing that's being talked about in these studies is un, the customer satisfaction, so coach satisfaction with these courses. There's a lot of coaches who have actually come out, like say, of a UEFA A license, and have actually been unsatisfied with what they've received, because they thought it was decontextualized. Sometimes, like the tutor could ramble on a little bit. I remember doing my FA level one when I was 16, um, and I remember just coming out there, just going, "When will this end?" Like I had massive, like head, like I was just proper, like it can get really boring. But when I done my BSc, it was completely different. I just felt as if I was learning a lot more, because it was all backed up as well by evidence-based things, and also things were recorded on the odd occasion, so we could have a look at, okay, this was great, maybe we need to improve here and that kind of thing. And again, they were transparent with how was the course, are you satisfied with what you're getting, and like with the FA, these are things that I just whilst they have made positive steps in terms of like, say, we're now using game, but because there's now been an increase in game-based drills being used by coaches, which is a great thing. And also they are taking positive steps with technology enhanced learning. So now you're seeing like e-learning, so like online modules, and things. But however, I think there's still so much that needs to be done in terms of making sure that the formal education is contextualized, and also with pricing as well, because I recently saw a post on LinkedIn from a coach, and he showed all the prices of all the courses worth in England. So for the UEFA A license, it's like something like £2,000, something like that. In Germany, for the UEFA A license, it's 500 odd euros. And I don't know why again, I'm not an economist, but the price that is a huge difference. And the fact that this is not being addressed by the FA is puzzling to me, with all the things, again, with technology enhanced learning as well.
Absolutely, and I completely agree in terms of coach education, and the prices are just ridiculous in that sense. Like, even though you're in the English FA system, I'm in the Welsh FA system, so it's great to have
Yeah.
that understanding between the two systems. But even here in Wales, it's £900 for the B license if you're outside of Wales. But if you've been on the pathway, then it's half the price, which I'm
Right.
quite lucky in that sense. But I remember being on a course. I remember, although I paid £450, £450 is still a lot of money. It's not just something you go, right, there's 450, I'll just throw that away now in the next hour. And that's not a problem, because 450 is quite a lot unless you're a billionaire and you're like, right, that's nothing. But in that sense, I remember being on the course, and one of the tutors said to me, it doesn't matter whether you fail, you can just do this course again. Okay, great. I love the fact that you can get on the course again and it's not about failing, we can continue to learn. But at the expense of £450 a time, if you fail the
Yes.
course, um, I was like, are you for real? Because that if I failed it and had to do it again, that's almost £1,000 on the context of maybe trying to pass a course.
Yeah.
And I get that you with that with a degree, and I know through the degree levels, you even though you might not get your honours, you still come out with a degree at some point, whether it's just a standard degree, um, and it's like any other course. But in that sense, when it's almost £1,000, but they're trying to increase participation,
Yes.
increase qualified coaches, it doesn't add up in terms of what they're trying to do and what they're trying to say for the price they're
Yeah.
charging.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also another issue is just pointing there is the quality of coaching, because a lot of if you go to grassroots level, a lot of it is volunteers or either like parents, etc., where like they haven't some of them are not even FA level one. They've had to do the introduction now, it's called, i.e. the FA level one. And that's a real issue, because I think what we should be doing is hiring actually like people who've actually come who've actually got a passion for coaching and who want to move up the hierarchical system in terms of like the sports development continuum. And going back again with the FA saying about they want to increase diversity and participation rates and everything, that there was another stat as well saying that I think a lot of the people who pass these courses are like ex-players, or either it's because I tried to do my the UFC license, i.e. the FA level 2. I tried to get it to sign up to it, and they literally went in a matter of minutes. And I told my someone from my club Beacons about this, and he said to me that they're prioritized to coach certain coaches, and I just think this, as much as like, okay, fair enough if they are prioritized, but I think it's moral. It's not, for me. It's in terms of like the spirit of what this should be, and in the moral compass, it's wrong. It,
Absolutely.
it, it's wrong, and the FA say they pride themselves on participation rates and all this stuff, when really it's not true, because why do you think other countries like Germany and like France, Portugal are producing the better coaches? Like, say, if you look at, or Spain, for example, who are producing the better coaches, Holland, like who've, like Italy as well, like their coaching systems like worked over the years, like in terms of like, if you look at who's won the Champions League in the last few years, I think it's been like Carlo Ancelotti last year, Thomas Tuchel, Hansi Flick, Jurgen Klopp, Op. I'm trying to think who else. Zidane as well from France, answering the last 3 years. Again, and I'm trying to think. Luis Enrique. Um, again, Ancelotti again, and 2013, Jupp Heynckes, who was who took Bayern Munich to the treble, Roberto Di Matteo from Italy, Pep Guardiola, and then Jose Mourinho from Portugal. No English manager is involved in that entire who've won the Champions League, and it's the same with the World Cup. You know, if you look at the World Cup, like Didier Deschamps from France, you know, before Joachim Low from Germany, the same with I'm trying to think Vincento Del Bosque from from Spain. Spain, sorry, I get it all muddled up. Like I think it's Pip. I can't remember his name, but again, Italy as well. The Italian coach won it again. Brazil as well. Luis Felipe Scolari. You know, this is a real problem that's not being spoken about. It's the quality of coaching within this country is a real problem, and no wonder why, say, the British managers are not getting the chance.
And it's again those grassroots coaches like us to try and get on that A license and next step. There's that huge expense of that, reward versus risk factor. I risk paying up $2,000 to maybe fail it, or I could come out with a pass rate, or I might not get on it because of the priority of coaches. So I'm never going to achieve that A license within the next two years. It's going to take me longer. I mean, it's a long system and process of getting those coaches through, and certainly increasing the standards and coaches available, especially within the game. And it's wrong in a sense of prioritising coaches. I've done everything up until my B, and it's now I feel like it's a glass ceiling. Even though the A is next, I don't feel that I'm going to get on there. And even if I am putting $2,000 towards it, it's a big risk of going right. I'm going to lose $2,000 if I don't pass. Whereas if you're an ex-pro, you literally there was a thing in the news, that when Ocean Roberts was in charge of Wales, obviously Tim Cahill, Patrick Vieira, Terry Henry, Tim Cahill. All those sorts of names were coming through the Welsh FA system, but the FA were being criticised because these coaches were getting through quicker through Wales than they would anywhere else. And then they took away from the grassroots coaches like myself trying to get on these courses. And, if we were failing and they were passing, it's because the focus was on ensuring they were passing for the good landscape of how the FAW were perceived around the world in terms of their coach education to attract these big players.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other issue as well in this country, specifically, you've had coaches like Gary Neville, for example, who's done his coaches and now has got no interest in doing it. Now, and again, who I think I'm going to be honest, and I think Gary Neville is one of the worst England coaches there's ever been. Not in terms of like manager, I just don't think who said it was his idea for Harry Kane to take corners during the Euro 20. I was 16 at the time, finishing my GCSEs, and just watching it, thinking the best goal scorer is taking corners. It makes no sense to me. And again, like also with Thierry Henry, who's now like he's not like people were tipping him to be a good coach, but yet he's out in America. You've got. I'm trying to think as well. I can't think of who many on the top of my head, but again, like Lampard again, like who's now at Everton, like Lampard, who again after what he did at Derby, everyone thought he's going to be a great coach, but then took the Chelsea job too early in my eyes. I'm a passionate Chelsea fan, and Lampard was my hero growing up, and for me, I always wanted what was best for him and everything, but he needed to be careful in that sort of route. You don't. That's the other thing as well, is biting off more than you can chew. You don't want to you need to sometimes pace yourself. When we think we're ready for something, maybe the universe is telling us just wait, just give yourself a few more years, and but yeah, I think the prioritization I think also another issue is how many people are welcomed on. So like say 12 candidates, or either that it's some, because my affiliation is with the London FA, and you have to go all the way up to Lee Valley, I think in like somewhere in North London. And I think what there should be is more places to go, say within that London FA, instead of just one location again. Then that way you have more coaches available, more affiliate tutors, providing again more job opportunities for affiliate tutors, more higher possibility of passing rates. You're increasing your possibility. And also I think changing you talk about the assessment, I think changing the assessment would be a massive change for me. I think it should be more of an ongoing process rather than one examination and hit. I think it needs to be less. I think that because I didn't realise as you could fail it. It, I just thought it was the thing you did, and then happy days you've got it. But realising you could fail it again after spending so much money is a real problem.
Absolutely, and again, I think it should be that ongoing process, handing in bits of coursework and giving clips of what you've been doing, and it should be that pass rate. Maybe you should have assessments, but then there's a lot more ongoing where if you don't do well on the assessments, they go, "Oh, do you know what? He's sent in this clip, or we've gone out to watch him at his club, or we've seen this, and there's examples of this coursework, and he's done really well. He's submitted these bits of work." There, it's more competency, which is more beneficial than being on a day when you're nervous, when the players are tired. You might have had them first, you might have had them last. You've had the same group. They're bored of doing the same sessions over and over, and even when you have
Yeah,
that group and they've been on all day, and suddenly you like this the 10th coach to deliver to them, they're bored of the stop start. They've taken on so much information. It's so difficult for you in that space then, and it can absolutely have an impact on your session. But it's that coach education which needs to improve, such as having more affiliate tutors and having that more availability in that area, to certainly get those coaches through. And especially when we talk about volunteer coaches and parents, and that's why I feel so many players go under the radar and miss out on opportunities, because as much as it's great to have volunteers and parents who are stepping up, and they don't always want to, I think because they are parents and only volunteers, we lose so many players across the board because of the lack of quality in coaching
yeah.
that's out there.
Yeah, I think also when you talk about players as well, I think another issue as well is I think the academy system as well in this country. Because again, I think now at Premier League clubs, there's now under eights and like say from under eights, I think they're accepting people like and it's just mental for me in many ways. And again, I think the problem is again this dropout percentage that I think that does need to be addressed at grassroots level. I think there's some study that we need to know why that's happening, and then because again, it's hard to solve the problem if haven't got the diagnosis right. But I think going back to youth academy system, I think we need to I think we need to the entry level needs to go up to under 11s because again, if you look at places like Bayern Munich, that's their entry level. The same with Ajax, their entry level is under because they've from the evidence that's been presented about burnout, dropout, and this kind of thing, and also I think again with the youth scout system, I just don't think it's right because these scouts have so much power over these players, whether they stay or whether they go. And I think we need to get rid of that at an early age because if they get dropped out, the worst thing is where's the plan B? Where's the backup plan? And that's another thing that because I can't remember his name, but there was an 18-year-old who from in 2018 who got released from Man City. He killed himself
Yeah.
because he couldn't cope with I can't remember his name, but like he could not cope with he found it very hard to see other people succeeding. And I think now Crystal Palace have now implemented an aftercare plan. What boggles my mind is that Manchester City didn't go after seeing that going, right, we need to do something here. We need to take responsibility here because this is now this is ridiculous because there's also the mental health has now gone up in massively over the last few years. There's more awareness, more people, which is great. And I think also at that age, I think that not only there needs to be like taking care of mental health, but also the aftercare program needs to be implemented. Because the great thing about football now these days is that there's so many opportunities to carry on. Like there's nutrition, there's strength and conditioning, there's physiotherapy, there's now performance and a performance analysis, which is also something I'm doing as well on the side to coaching. I'm working with a consultancy company and we're doing the analysis for QPR women's team and also for Bidericky Town. And we're like, there's stuff like that you can do. There's like, like again with the coaching, there's so many opportunities that you can do. Like, are you interested in content creation? Are you interested in like being like a safeguarding officer or something? What are you like? This is something like obviously we want people to dream. Of course we do. But however, with something like this that's so cutthroat, what you need a plan B. And that's something that like the likes of the Premier League clubs need to start implementing, because Crystal Palace have done it. I think Watford have got not like say an aftercare program, but however they've got a education program as well to balance their studies as well. If you look at other sports like athletics, for example, there's been programs that have been implemented that again where like they're able to balance out both. Like, you know, there's Dina Asher Smith, for example, like a very successful, currently one of, I think, probably the best sprinter in this country. She she uh she done very well. She studied history. She got a first. I think she done very well at her university at King's College. There's Dame Jessica Ennis Hill. Like when she was competing, whilst they were competing, they were also doing degrees in like their university degrees. You know, those those sports, those athletes are very well looked after, and it boggles my mind with the money that there is in football now that this isn't being implemented here.
No, of course, and aftercare is a massive area, especially when you talk about young ages, and we again it's those glass ceilings and too much too soon, because it's that aftercare from that long term plan from when they started under eights to 16s, and then they could be released at end of scholars, and then they have to go right. Do I have to go abroad? Do I have to try and find another club? And I'm going to go on endless amount of trials, or am I going to try and pursue going into education? It's a lot for them to juggle at 16 at the end of a scholarship, or even to start a scholarship, to start going, I need to push more than I've ever pushed, and then suddenly at 18, then I am released. But there's two kinds of examples here. I know that I used to coach a player when he was at under sevens in the pre-academy, and coaching in the pre-academy is tough because you see it from within. They're trying to get too much too soon.
Yeah.
And coaching young players, and suddenly parents going, oh, they're part of the academy, or let's get the kit, and suddenly they're on a
Yeah.
pathway. You're like, this kid is like 7 years of age. Let's
Yes.
calm right down already. But since I'm no longer started coaching the player, I think he's under nines now, and his dad texted me the other week, and he said, follow me on Instagram. And I was speaking to this parent, and he suddenly plays for 3 different clubs. He trains every night of the week. He plays for 3 different clubs on a weekend. I was like, this kid is 9. And you are pushing this kid too much. You're travelling left, right, and centre. He's got no social time. He's out late every night. He's playing every weekend. You're trying to show him off so much on social media. I was like, this is too much for this kid.
Yeah.
Just focus on one pathway. I can understand you're chasing the dream, but this is too much. 7 days a week, no nights off,
Yeah.
3 clubs. This kid is in a poor situation.
Oh, definitely, absolutely, and I think that there's the pathway that's called is early specialization, and that is something that needs to be avoided. That has to be avoided at all costs at that age, because it can lead to burnout, it can lead to mental health issues, higher levels of anxiety, injuries, like injuries when they're later on that could be detrimental. Like, and like again, I could hand you so many studies of that I've seen in about this afterwards, but like there's so much now that we, so what they're trying to say at that age, it should be about early diversification, where like you go and try this sport, go and try this sport, like, and where it's again it's about the emphasis on fun and just enjoying the sports and see what you like. And that's something that as a coach you need, again with that emphasis on, you don't want to be like putting too much onto them too soon. So like I haven't had this question yet, but however, like when players like or parents have come along and said, Ed, oh, what do you think my kid, could he like get scouted and everything? And there was like questions of I heard from a parent saying about, oh, like she really wants to be a footballer, and it's like great, but like absolutely, but however, like you just need to wait for that. Just not, don't think about it just yet. Just give it, if she wants to do it like when she's 11 or 12, then that's when we go, okay, let's try and like put a bit more emphasis in this. That's the age where you can sort of go, right, let's begin the transition. But whereas when you're below that age, it's a bit more like, let's find what sport you like. Like,
100%, 100%. And when they sort of find it on their own terms and they're going, I want to push more for this, mum or dad, or I want to be this, especially at that age, they can be like, right, they're taking that independence, they're taking that leadership, they know what they want, they're trying to pursue it more than ever. Whereas I'm not pushing them from 8 years of age, and they've enjoyed those years of maybe playing grassroots or having those relationships with friends or just enjoying the sport for what it is or experiencing, playing not just football but netball, tennis, they're going swimming,
yeah,
they're doing more other things. Whereas this child I was on about, he doesn't do any other sport. He just
yeah,
football. Whereas like, let's cut down on the football. Just get him swimming or something. Bit of fun, relax his muscles, or take him out for a bit of tennis. Just develop his other skills so we could go right. Do you know what? If a big injury comes along, what happens then when all he knows is football and then he has to spend years trying to get better at another sport which he wants to be competent at, for example? And it's having those other options available and not trying to push too much too soon. Um, but it relates so much into this aftercare. I'm coaching under 19s now, and we have 10 ex Cat Free Academy players who are all part of an academy. And I have a best mate who's 25. He's currently in the first team, and in there is again about 7 or 8 ex Cat Free Academy. So there is a big gulf between the under 19s and
yeah,
these 25-year-olds. But in context, there are 20 players between the age of 18 and 25 who all play for this Cat-Free Academy. They've gone out abroad, they've had scholarships, they're now playing senior football, they've played youth football, they've won cups, they've done well independently. Do you think since they've been released from scholarship that the Cat-Free have reached out to them once? Have they highlighted their achievements? Have they kept in touch with them? Have they gone, oh, it's so great to see X, Y, and Z playing this weekend in this tournament or doing well? No, they haven't, and I feel so sorry for all these players because this academy should be so proud of, even though these players are not professional footballers, even though they haven't gone on
hmm
to achieve other things in the professional game. In the grassroots game, they've still achieved so much, and this academy should be so proud of the time that they've invested in them and
yeah,
looking after them.
yeah, absolutely. And I think what people forget sometimes, I was listening to someone, he said it's not about being the best, it's about doing the best you can with what you got. And look, I was like, when we hear all these stories about the chaos surrounding academy coaches, like I kind of think I'm kind of glad that I didn't go down that pathway because I when I was when I'm confess to you, I'm on the autistic spectrum. I've had it since I was 9, and I didn't find out until I was 14. And when when I when I had my began my experience, I played for an under 10s team when I was a kid, and obviously my dream at that age was I'm going to go and play for Chelsea. I'm going to go play for these teams. I'm going to do this, and but at that time, that my anxieties properly started to kick in, like because when you are on like these spectrums, that your anxiety is heightened and all this kind of thing, and I could not handle the stress of a game or of a match, and like because I put too much pressure on myself and too much, and that's why I sort of went into coaching because when I started doing the under eights now, the adrenaline buzz that I got and everything, the energy and like my inner anxieties, it was like, wow, I can handle this. This is actually like this. There's something in this. Again, I can do this because I'm still able to enjoy it and be involved in a sport that I love in a way that is better for me. You know, I'm able to be involved, but however, I'm able to handle the stress of it. You know, and I think again with the aftercare program, and like because there's some players where like that when they've left the academy, because I was reading something as well the other day that he was a very accomplished academy player, but however, and they thought he had big hopes for the future, but instead he just went. He didn't really like the lifestyle of it and everything, and then he decided, no, I don't want that, and I'm going to start my own business. And now it's worth over 1 million. Like he's done like very, very well for himself. And I think again, like again with the aftercare, is having those different passions is very, very important.
Absolutely, and those passions can really help you get through the darkest of times. And when there are coaches or individuals who are starting up their own academies, it's great for them to sort of have that investment, have that focus, and go, do you know what? Even though I didn't make it in terms of this aspect, now I can make a big impact with these kids, and they can come through and have that understanding. But that can be its own issue within itself between the regulation of academy football and private academies versus pros, and how many different opportunities there are available, which is great, but are they the right opportunities? And that's another huge landscape in itself of issues versus benefits. And I've worked in private versus pro, and I can understand both sides of it, as well as grassroots. So I've got 3 different caps on that I can put on, and I can sit from the outside and really weigh things up as a neutral. But it's in that sense of aftercare is so important. And for me, the fact that we're in 2022 and we're talking about where this should be, it's ridiculous, because this should have been implemented at least 20 years ago, and we should now be going, we need to push it forward even more and start developing roles and start going, right,
Yeah,
we need a psychologist on the pitch every day, have one then in the office, have a well-being coach available, have networks, have contacts available. There should be so much
yeah,
more available, and it feels like, even though as we talk about coach education and things like that, coach education isn't even ready to start talking about those things, even in
no,
what it's doing now. And between coach education, grassroots, volunteers, standards, performance, from all those levels to aftercare levels, then between an
yeah,
academy and those problems in between of young players having too much too soon, it's a huge landscape which the game isn't even at a capacity to start implementing these changes now in 2022.
yeah. I know it's madness. It's absolute. Like again, like I think as well. The problem is with the I think with the board, like the FA board or the executives, most of them people are not got footballing backgrounds. Most of them are just politicians or either like business people, you know, and that's a real issue. Again, I think what we need again with I think there needs to be a complete with the FA. I think there needs to be a complete change in management completely. I think there needs to be footballing. We need footballing people in there. I think we need again people with evidence based. We need evidence based people in there, like scientists like to have their say, which is another problem. There's again with the FA and like it is madness that these weren't sorted out years ago. But however, the fact that we're again, it just shows how far behind we are. The FA says, "Oh, we're the best in the world. Like English football's the best place to be," but the reality is we're not. We are not the best in the world. Like or British football to be like we're not the best at all. Like we are not like like Germany are ahead of us, Ajax are ahead of us, Brazil like are producing better players than us. You know, like Spain are producing better players than us. Italy are producing better players. France have produced amazing players. You know, Portugal have produced amazing players. So I don't understand why we haven't gone right. What are they doing that we aren't? Or either what have they or Holland, for example, with Ajax? What have they done? And what have they learned? Why haven't we like maybe with how English football is played right now? That is something that we've done. We've taken snippets from other sports to create our own philosophy of how we play. But however, in terms of like the youth setup and like how we want to be in terms of the grassroots and the foundation phase, that's something that again that's not been addressed.
Of course, and when you have a coach like yourself who's come through the English system and says it's not the best in the world, when I'm over here in Wales and we're so far behind even the English game, it puts into a wider landscape of everything going on in Britain, as you say, in terms of how differentiated it is in terms of the Scottish FA, the Irish FA, the Welsh FA, the English FA, and in terms of what we're all doing and how far behind each one is. And I feel that it ranks from the English to the Welsh, then to the Scottish, then to the Irish,
Yeah,
because when I've spoken to everyone, such as players and coaches in these areas, they talk about the problems in each, and even though we're progressing so far through our new CEO, who I got to give huge credit to in terms of
yeah,
how he's trying to change everything in Wales and trying to invest in better facilities, and he has such a plan for this high performance strategy with the
yeah,
technical director, we are still so far behind the English FA, such as we don't have competitive youth leagues. We don't even have referees at young ages. How many coaches are coming through? Do we have the adequate
hmm
facilities? When you talk about having area associations, for example, ours are all volunteer boards who have sat on the boards for 20, 30
hmm
years. And that isn't going to change, and that needs to be regulated by the Welsh FA, and these need to start becoming paid boards, which are staff members, which regulate the game from FAW standards, even then into local leagues, because suddenly we might have an area association which might say this is how we want to do things. Well, that's different to what the Welsh FA say, and then the local footballing board are going, well, we're going to do things slightly different to what both of them are doing, and suddenly there's this different contrasting problems throughout the game. And when you go on coach education pathways, all the coaches going, well, we had this problem and we've had this problem, and suddenly the technical directors going, well, we shouldn't be having these problems because this is what we're saying from the national standard levels. But because it's not regulated across the board, these individual boards which are sat around for 30 years and members, because of things have always been that way to them, even though these technical directors are changing things, they don't like this change, and suddenly the game's not evolving quick enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like that's where the crossroads is at the minute. Like, you know, with especially with the like, because they say like, oh, we're putting in money and like and this kind of thing, but also when you mention about like producing more like high quality coaches, but however, you may be producing more with England. You may be producing more coaches, but what's the effectiveness? How many people are actually like say? You can always say, oh, we've got so many more coaches, but however, how good are they? That's the real problem, as well. Like, what's the how satisfied are the players are with these coaches? How much are they have they implemented from the FA education? How much have they actually? What have they like? This is a very. I think there needs to be some form of study again, looking into the effectiveness, and also, oh, again, like we can all say like we produced more numbers, or like say like for example more people going to university than ever before, but the real issue again like with something like university is how many people are coming out of their degrees going into a line of work that's related to their to the course that they did. How many people are like going into like a job, that specific job? It's the same with the FA. You know, how many people are like doing this? How many people are actually going into this? How many people are using their qualification? And that's something that needs to be checked.
Absolutely, and it's about that regulation which comes into play to
Yeah.
try and increase those standards, which is really important, especially for these young players which are coming through, to try and stop losing so much quality which is out there and start, really enhancing every individual that we have coming through the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think again with the FA the it's very difficult to change. Absolutely, it's not something that's done overnight. But I think we all talk about oh action must be taken and all that kind of thing. But however, they're if those people are not willing to change, it feels futile in many ways. You might as well, like, if they're not going to. Sometimes I think our biggest mistake is these people are going to fight their. Is you expect some people to fight your own battles, but they won't. Sometimes it's up to you to actually make those changes yourself. Whether it's maybe not with the FA, for example, but within your own environment, and that's what I've tried to do like with the grassroots team. Like I like with the drills that I do, I don't try and do as much technical drills like things that are blocked and are less like are more closed. I try and do things that are open as possible and as much contextualized as possible, all because as I've got to make sure those players are prepared. And that's the biggest thing for me. Like, and again, if I could go back to with the FA say they're all great, because when I sent you the photo of me at Wembley with Lampard. Whilst for me that was probably the highlight. That's been the highlight of my life so far, other than my getting my BSc. That was everything I dreamed of. It was, but however, like that was after the aftermath of the English with the European Championships. But the problem is that those moments are it's like propaganda to show we're actually really good and all this kind of thing, like with McDonald's Fun Football. But the thing is, McDonald's Fun Football is done like every summer. It's not done like it comes around when the Community Shield's on. Like you don't often hear whilst these things are important, absolutely, there's no question of it in my mind. But however, I think those things need to be offered on a more frequent basis, and also I think more bucket list opportunities like things like Wembley, because those things like that don't get made very often. So that's what makes it. But however, in many ways, that's what makes it very special. But for me, I think stuff like that needs to be offered a bit more. Like say, like this opportunity. Like so, yes, you may not have made it as a professional, but I get to say I've walked on the Wembley Stadium pitch. I even remember the corner that I was in. It was where Harry Kane celebrated after he scored the penalty against Denmark, or he put the rebound in against Denmark, where everyone was like went mental. And obviously to coach with my hero Frank Lampard, and that's some of the beauties that coaching can bring in. But however, it's something that it needs to be something more opportunities like that need to be sorted out with.
Absolutely, and I think it's a great time to bring up that photo of you with Frank Lampard, which is a great photo, and talk further about that. So let me just pull up that photo for you.
4-year-old walking into the stadium for the first time.
Okay, so where we should have that photo of Frank Lampard.
Is it?
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that was that was like that was honestly the best of the day. I got to work like one of my mates, Alfie, was also with me that day. He was like we've worked together since 2019. We were both with We Make Footballers together. We also were students at St Mary's University, and to share that like with to share that with him as well. That we were like just two. He's a Manchester United fan, but however, to share that opportunity with one of your mates, and also the fact that we both were like we were realizing a dream before our very eyes was just a very special moment. And the fact that like with Frank, most of that day he was pulled about by the PR people, because again at that time it was a media day. But however, like he asked me how I was. He shook my hand and everything. It was he was a very nice bloke. And like there was also other legends there. There was Casey Stoney, Farrah Williams, Sir Geoff Hurst was there as well. Martin Keown, obviously on Match of the Day. One that wasn't very prepared was Billy Wingrove from the F2. He was there, and I thought it was David Beckham at first, because he had blonde hair, like the bleach blonde hair. But however, it was sadly it was Billy Wingrove. But however, Billy was actually a really really nice bloke. Like he just said, like he was interested in what we had to say, like like what we were doing afterwards and everything. And yeah, it was like a proper day that I just never forget. And to walk on that turf was just something else. And I actually, the funny thing about that thing, I know I need to stop making this about myself, but when I was 17, I was there's also UCFB. I was there for an open day, and I was sitting in like one of the seats, and I was just looking at an empty stadium, because Tottenham at the time were playing their games there because they were rebuilding the stadium. And I was sitting there and I just thought, I want to have this opportunity for real. Not where like I'm in a stadium, not where like I'm watching or like on a tour, on like a tour. I want to be on that pitch doing like making for real, not for like some ordinary day. And it came true for 4 years later for me, and it was and now that it's made me hungry for what I want to achieve later on in my life and what I want to do before I retire and stuff. And it's been a real like just amazement. And it was like a dream for about 4 or 5 hours. It's just unbelievable, very very special.
It's so surreal, and that saying, a picture paints 1,000 words. It's absolutely 1,000 words for each of those kids, and certainly for you in that great smile in the background. And as you say, that great moment to not only be on Wembley pitch, but then to have Frank Lampard there and other amazing guests, but to see all these kids happy as well. There's so much there. There's girls, there's boys, there's children with disabilities, and they're having out those experiences, as you say, that they can talk about, where they've gone on Wembley pitch, and just that day encaptures what might be one of the greatest moments of their lives, whether they're in or out of sport, or what they can go on in life to talk about, to their partners, to their children, or to friends, etc., or what they can maintain in their hearts. And but it's
Mm.
giving you that hunger as well to know that you want to be out there, you want to be on that pitch, you want to be coaching. And it's from those experiences where I know, even when I've gone out with kids on jobs that I've done, and we've gone to the Principality Stadium, and you walk out with the music on, you see the tunnel, you walk out, the pitch is just in front of you, the sun's glaring, and you're like, whoa, I want to be a manager. But imagine having 60,000 screaming
Yeah.
fans, players are ready, there's a cup there, or you're a league game, and you're like, this is not only the
Mhm.
dream, but I want to pursue that, I want to get there. And it just creates that so much inside, and that hunger and excitement in terms of what we're on the path of doing, but where we want to go as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, when I was younger, like the fact that I got when I was like 11, this never would have been thought possible because I was when I was at primary school, I was in like a language resource and everything, and my sort of development was mishandled when I was a kid, and it was all up in the loop, and I had a lot of work to do when I was at secondary school, and I had to do, I had to, and I managed. I wasn't expected to get one GCSE when I was one GCSE when I started, and I ended up leaving with nine, including maths and English, and the fact that and it was like, and the fact that I'm here now and able to do something that I enjoyed, because if if I hadn't have realised that I needed to change or either do something about this, I wouldn't have had that opportunity. I'd probably be labouring, doing work with my dad because he's a tiler. I'd be tiling with my dad probably if I hadn't have taken action and done something about it. And the fact that I'm able to do something that I've loved ever since I was a 4-year old kid, and still, because when you're younger, you do have doubts, you do have like that worry or concern that it may never happen, or either like some. And when I was a kid, I always lived in fear a lot of the time, and I was like, when I was a kid, I was like, I wasn't a popular guy at all. I wasn't a I was sort of bullied at school, or I was like, I wasn't a popular guy. And when I look at this, it's sort of like there's a part of me that goes, it's brilliant and all that, but there's a secret part of me that goes, how do you guys like it now, eh?
And which is great, because it's such a shame to hear that you have been bullied and had those bad experiences in life, which is such a shame, because you are such a nice guy. I wish you lived in South Wales rather than London, because I know I would spend a lot of time with you. But it's great that you can sort of go, yeah, look at me now, and you're not even finished, and you're not even at a point where you're gonna outshine them even more. So to say that already, and then to where you're gonna go, I think is absolutely gonna be like moon and worlds apart in terms of where they're going to be and where you're going to be. And it's
Yeah,
great that you've pursued that pathway and
yeah,
applied everything that you have. But between that great
yeah,
personality, that focus, that dedication,
yeah,
the impact of the kids, everything you learn, that passion, that drive, that love, those experiences is going to lead you on a great pathway, which has already been great so
yeah,
far.
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, with the main person I sort of really have to thank is the man in the picture there, Frank Lampard, because when I was younger, I think role models are important, especially in this day and age, are very important, because there's a lot of controversy surround like whether like do young people have good role models now, because with social media and all, like this the stuff around the influencers and that kind of thing. I was lucky that I grew up in a period where social media was sort of on the trajectory. It wasn't like well known, and and at the time I was growing up, I had this man here performing week in week out at Chelsea, and also I heard all the stories about what he was doing in training, and also like the dedication he showed on the training ground, where he was the last one to leave, and the passion that he showed, and the work ethic and all that. And after seeing that, I don't think without a role model like Lampard, I don't think I would have been able to have achieved what I have in life. And also having a great nucleus of people around you, like my family, my mother, who who's been a massive rock, who's my rock really in my life. She when I was she was the only. Obviously, I had my family, but she was the one person who had my back. And I could confess anything to her. And it was a real. And I think what I've learned from like my like life things, like stuff like that, it's sort of come into like my coaching philosophy. It's all like hard work, making sure that everyone's okay, and that kind of thing. And because I've always believed that coaching is an extension of who you are as a person. And it's got like I think you learn a lot about yourself in those environments. Are you can you like be professional? Can you be polite? All this kind of thing. And I think what is lost in this day and age is sometimes is the manners and stuff and everything. And whenever I've had to officiate or something, I've always gone like because obviously at under eights you got the retreat lines and everything. I've said halfway. I've always gone like halfway, please, or either like just wait for one moment, please, or whatever. Like just been very, very polite about it, And I've been very fortunate in many ways, and I'm very lucky with what I have.
And it's great to hear that you have those great experiences and that rock in your mum that has been there so much for you and will continue to be there so much and have that impact. And role models like Frank Lampard but you're going to be a role model to so many kids that you coach, and they're going to look at you the way you look at Frank Lampard. And it's great to have such a great coach in the sport available in terms of yourself and what you want to apply, and that you're going to be there and create those high standards in terms of your own philosophy, your own coaching principles, your own standards, and your own goals in terms of what you'd like to achieve personally as a coach, in terms of trying to push these kids to strive for so much more and try and get trophies along the way. But it's been fascinating to listen to you and have these great insights. And I wish you the best of luck on your coaching journey. And I'm so thankful for your time. And whenever your time allows you to get you on for however many more you'd like to do, if you wanted to do, I'd always be open to that. But it's been great meeting you. It's been great to speak about all these amazing things, and I know you have so much more to offer. Just drop me a line. But it's been great so far, and I'm really thankful that you wanted to come on this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I've always wanted to come on a podcast as well, and I'm trying. Away from, again, we talk about different passions. I'm trying to start up my own podcast myself, and again, we want to put my main synopsis or premise of it is to provide solutions to sociological, societal, educational, and sporting issues. Is because, again, what I've tried to do when speaking to you now is, whilst again I think we love to talk about the issues and problems, I've tried my best in this to try and provide solutions to the problems, because I think that's the only way we can move forward.
Absolutely. And if we can keep moving forward, then that's what it's all about. And your podcast idea sounds fascinating. And I wish you the best of luck. But, staying in touch is what it's all about. And I hope to, see you do great things on your socials. And we'll certainly, exchange them in a moment. But, again, I'm thankful for your time. And I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you very much. I'm glad you could be on here.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
No worries.